Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we try to make sense of the systems that shape our world. Today, we're digging into a really important book, sociologist Matthew Desmond's Poverty by America, and it tackles a huge American paradox.
So here's the question at the heart of it all. It seems logical, right? If a country gets richer and richer every single year, poverty should shrink. It should just go away. But in the United States, one of the wealthiest economies in the history of the world, that's not what's happening. Deprivation is still a massive, persistent problem. So what gives? Why?
Well, according to Desmond, the answer is pretty provocative. He says poverty isn't some unfortunate accident or a byproduct of our economic system. No, he argues it's a direct, even necessary outcome of how our system is designed. You know the saying, it's not a bug, it's a feature? That's exactly what he's getting at.
Okay, so to really wrap our heads around this argument, we first have to look at the sheer scale of the problem. We're talking about two extremes, America's incredible wealth, right alongside its staggering poverty.
And let's be absolutely clear about the wealth part. The U.S. gross domestic product, it's bigger than the combined economies of Japan, Germany, the UK, India, France, and Italy. Think about that for a second. The resources, they are without a doubt there. And yet, amidst all of that unprecedented wealth, you have this number, 38 million. That's how many people in the United States are living in poverty right now. That's almost 1 out of every 9 Americans who just can't afford the basics.
To put that number into perspective, Desmond uses this really powerful analogy. Imagine if all 38 million Americans living in poverty decided to found their own country. The population of that new country would be larger than the entire population of Australia. We're talking about a country-sized problem hiding in plain sight.
Okay, so let's move away from the abstract numbers for a minute and talk about what this actually feels like for people. What is the lived reality of poverty? Because Desmond argues it's so much more than just a number on a spreadsheet or an income line you fall below.
Yeah, he doesn't see it as a simple line you're either above or below. He calls it a tight knot of social maladies. I love that phrasing. It's not just one single problem. It's a whole bunch of problems, all tangled up together. And this is what he calls the piling on effect. It's not just one thing. It's the chronic pain you get from a tough manual labor job, which is piled on top of the constant stress of maybe getting evicted, which is piled on top of depression. Each one of these problems makes the others worse, and that's what makes that knot so incredibly hard to untangle. So, the big question is, what ties this knot so tight? Is it just bad luck? Well, the book argues no. It's active exploitation that's literally designed into the incentive structure of our core economic markets. In other words, these markets are like engines that are actively producing and sustaining poverty. Let's take the labor market, for example. Back in 2018, the median pay was around $30,000. But here's the kicker. Researchers estimate that if the market were perfectly competitive and fair, that same worker should have been making at least $41,000. That's a huge gap. And that money doesn't just vanish into thin air, it's being captured by someone else. And you see a really similar and frankly shocking pattern in the housing market. Desmond's own research found that landlords often make more profit per apartment in the poorest neighborhoods than they do in middle-class neighborhoods. Let that sink in. The system is literally designed to extract the most money from the people who have the least.
All right, so that's what's happening in the markets. But how does this play out at the policy level? You know, we talk a lot about welfare for the poor, but Desmond points out there's this other, much bigger and often invisible welfare system that overwhelmingly benefits the affluent.
And the result is what he calls a system of private opulence and public squalor. It's this idea that while private fortunes have skyrocketed, our investment in public goods, things we all share, like schools, public transit, social services, has just been starved. So we end up with a society that's super rich in private luxuries, but really poor in shared resources.
And this really breaks down that two-tiered system. On one side, you have the affluent, who benefit most from things like tax breaks and deductions. The mortgage interest deduction is a classic example. On the other side, the poor rely on programs you have to qualify for, like food stamps. But here is the most crucial takeaway. The top 20% of earners get 6 times as much in government subsidies as the bottom 20%. 6 times.
So when you put it all together, the exploitation in the markets, these totally lopsided government benefits, it all builds to the book's really powerful and frankly challenging conclusion about how wealth and poverty are actually connected.
And here it is, the absolute core of the argument.
There is so much poverty in America not in spite of our wealth, but because of it. It's this mind-bending idea that prosperity for some and deprivation for others can spring from the very same system, the very same set of rules.
So how does that actually work? Well, there are a few key ways. First, you have that exploitation we talked about in the housing and labor markets, keeping wages down and costs up for the poor. Second, you have government subsidies designed to funnel benefits to the wealthy. And third, you have the creation of these exclusive communities that basically hoard all the good stuff. Great schools, safe parks, and other opportunities, locking other people out.
To really drive home the moral side of all this, Desmond brings in a powerful metaphor from Leo Tolstoy. It's this image of a person sitting on another's back, choking them, while saying how sorry they are, without ever getting off. It's a stark reminder that our own comfort might be directly connected to someone else's burden, and that just feeling sorry isn't enough.
And that really leaves us with a final and pretty difficult question to chew on. If we accept this idea that our own prosperity is connected to the hardship of others through these systems we all participate in, then what does it actually mean to get off their back?